Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I know I certainly am. I just had some of the most spiritually charged weekends that I've had since I was at my old house and doing a whole bunch of chaperoning. On Saturday, I got to go to veneration of a relic of Saint Veronica's veil. Now, for those of you that don't know who Veronica is, she's part of sacred tradition, but you'd be surprised how many people think she's from the Bible. Basically, sacred tradition tells us that when Jesus was on his way to the cross, she took off her veil, which back then was considered scandalous, possibly even sexually immoral, and she wiped off Jesus' face, and then when she got her veil back, she saw Jesus' face on the veil. And then, after Jesus was resurrected, the face on the veil changed so that it reflected Jesus' resurrected body as opposed to his crucified face. So I got to see, I guess, a recreation of what Jesus' face looked like. And oh, hello, hey girl, welcome in. Glad you could finally make it back to the streams. How's everything going? I don't know if you were hearing all that I was just saying about the relic, but whoo boy, was that an amazing experience. What about you? Any big news? Any cool things going on? Oh, being able to. So I'll repeat my story then. So this past Saturday, and this is my big news. This past Saturday, I went to first I went to church, and then after church, there was an opportunity to venerate a piece of Saint Veronica's veil. Now, Veronica was a woman that was not mentioned in scripture, but she was mentioned by like word of mouth that was passed down over the years. And according to tradition, when Jesus was on his way to the cross, she wiped off his face with her veil. Back then, it was very frowned upon for women to remove their veils, even though nowhere in the Old Testament did it say that that was mandatory. They possibly would have even said that was sexually immoral because a woman showing her hair, like I said, was scandalous back then. But after she finished wiping off Jesus' face, his face appeared on the veil. And then 3 days later, after his resurrection, the face changed so that it reflected his resurrected body. And so um, there was a piece of that was taken to the church where I was at, and I was able to like receive some of the graces from that because again it touched Jesus's face, and like things that touch Jesus generally are good conduits of grace, for lack of a better word. And I don't even know how to explain it. First it felt like there was a stirring right around here. And then as I was walking back to the car, then I started feeling a little bit dizzy, and then and then it spread to my thumbs. I started feeling like a little bit of electricity, and then it spread to my feet. And then at one point I just wanted to burst out crying because I was feeling so amazing. And then I heard this voice that said, "Upon looking at my face, I have healed you of a multitude of sins." And as though that wasn't enough, then the following day, I went to this thing at that same church called Eucharistic Encounter, where they had Eucharistic adoration, and they also had people that were able to pray over people, and then they had a confession, and then they had pizza afterward. So first off, when I was being prayed over, I asked if I would ever be able to do more events like all the chaperoning that I did at my old house again, because I was like, man, I just feel like I just haven't been able to be as radical of a servant as I'd like. And after the people prayed over me, it was maybe like a couple of seconds. The woman said, "Paul, I see an image of a sunrise, but it's not a complete sunrise. It's still dawn." She said, "You're at a time in your life where maybe it's feeling a little bit dark." But then she said, "Just you wait. Once the sun rises, God has some amazing things in store for you because sunrises are always beautiful. And then she used a metaphor where she said she's the type of person that gets freckles when she goes outside. So she said, like, when I'm outside, I don't notice that I'm getting freckles, but after the fact, it's so clear. So she said, in the same way, retroactively, you're going to realize that Jesus was working in you that whole time. Oh, yes. Yo, I'm probably not even doing it justice on this live stream, if I'm being honest. Hey, girl, it's just so like spiritual encounters are those things where like you both remember every detail, but then simultaneously it's hard to actually verbalize to other people. But like my mom was there and she felt even stronger than I did. And she wasn't going in with any kind of preconceived notions. She just said, "All right, I'm going to see what happens." And then she was like crying after she came back um from the well, this video is gonna be my journaling, actually. I'll probably write it down after this as well. Yeah, she came back, she was crying, but it was, like, happy tears, and she said, like, she felt, like, in the palms of her hands and on her wrists, she felt this, like, this tingling sensation, and she just felt so, so loved and so cherished, and, um and again, she wasn't expecting it. And my mom is the type of person that I would say she's not really the imaginative type. Like, usually she doesn't get my jokes because my jokes are so like outlandish. I don't think she would have the capacity of making this up. So I think she's just, it was emotional for her. For me, it was more so just, so the next day was very emotional because I decided I was going to do a life confession. So when I went to the priest, I just said, I'm just going to confess as many sins as I can remember and just get rid of all my regrets and everything that I've been holding on to all these years. And ever since then, I don't think I felt a single regret. Like, I even struggled to remember some of the stuff in my past that I was like holding on to, which is saying a lot because I'm the type of person that lives in the past all the time. Like, those questions that people ask where you say, like, where do you live? The past, present, or the future? For me, past 100% of the time. It's hard for me to live in the present because I'm always comparing it to the past. Yeah, yeah, my jokes are pretty dry. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to say that my sense of humor is kind of unique. Like, my friends even call it Paul humor because they've never heard anything like it. If I had to compare it to anything though, I'd probably say like Kokichi from Danganronpa V3 Killing Harmony. Like if you ever listen to some of the stuff he says, maybe like not quite as mean as how he does it, but he tends to be like kind of honest with people but in a funny way. Yeah. Yeah, well, everyone has intuition, even if they're sensors. ISTJs, they have extroverted intuition in the inferior, and sometimes the inferior function is also called the aspirational function, which means like deep down inside you want to be better at it. So like when I was around my ENFP friends, I started to realize that there was value in stuff like silliness and obscure connections. And so as I got older, I started to realize that, speculation and what ifs were something that I wanted to get better at. I still don't romanticize like what ifs and possibilities. Like usually I'll try and I'll do it for like 2 minutes and then I'll get bored. But I've definitely gotten to the point where like I was on a Myers-Briggs Facebook page the other day and I was talking about a YouTube channel called Mongolian Mindset. And I said the person who runs that channel must really like chocolate because his channel name is just M&M. And someone said, That sounds like introverted thinking trickster, which is the seventh function for ENFPs and ESFPs. So there you go. My intuition has gotten so good that I fool people with it. But I certainly wouldn't call myself a dominant intuitive. Like, I generally zone out when people get too metaphorical. Um, I generally don't like entertaining what ifs and big picture stuff. Um, it's actually quite hard for me to summarize things. Like when I'm telling people a story, I don't typically give an overview of what I learned. I typically like will give a lot of unnecessary details. In fact, the other day, my brother came over to hang out with me as a birthday present. And I just said, I showed him my t shirt that says just Paulism on it. And on the back, it had a bunch of names of various mission trip stories. And I just said, try to see how many of these you actually remember. And he just said, Paul, sometimes you remember the silliest things that you get a kick out of and no one else does. So he strikes me as the type that's probably, I'm thinking he might be a secondary intuitive. Like I think he might be an ENTJ because he doesn't seem to have the memory capacity. The family history. Good one. Um, I would say I'm a historian for things I'm interested in. In general, I would say I don't pay too much attention to historical facts that I don't have a say in. Like, I'm not going to pay attention to like US presidents or the Washington Monument. That kind of stuff I might like learn I might remember a thing or two, but I'm typically gonna be the person who's gonna like remember almost every quote in Deathly Hallows. I'll be able to go through the chapters in order. I might be able to like I'm good at remembering things that I was there for, but I've noticed that with regards to things like family holidays, civic holidays, traditions, you would think that's an SJ thing, but I've noticed it's more of an NJ and SP type of thing because my INTJ friends, and to a certain extent the ENTJs as well, oh, they love their holidays and they love their traditions. They'll sometimes kind of get mad at me if I disrespect them. Like for example, they always get so baffled whenever Thanksgiving comes around and I just have no excitement. I'm just like, yeah, I don't really like turkey. I don't really like mashed potatoes all that much. I just want pizza. And like I said, I always thought it was an SJ thing, but I'm starting to realize that that doesn't make any sense because all of the SJs have introverted sensing in either the dominant or the secondary. And because it's introverted, therefore it's subjective, which means that they're going to focus their sensing, their sense of reality off of the self more than others. So when it comes to like traditions, they're going to focus on things that they created, not things that other people created. Whereas SPs and NJs, they all have extroverted sensing. So they're going to focus on like other people's traditions and other people's routines. So that's why like my INFJ friends, for example, they will like text me for every single holiday and say like happy Thanksgiving, happy Easter, and me I'll be like, "Oh, that was nice of you for remembering. Didn't even cross my mind to text you guys." But like the things that I will text them about will be like, "Hey, it marks exactly this many years since we became friends." Or I'll say like, "Hey, this marks exactly 10 years since I got out of depression." So I will celebrate things that mean something to me personally. They will celebrate stuff um, that means a lot to society as a whole. I don't mind. Well, I don't really like texting in general because I have one of these. But I would say like just saying something like "thank you" to people when they message me for a holiday. Typically, like my friends typically will only text me, like, once, and then I won't get another text for, like, another several days. Like, sure, I might get, like, 2 texts on Easter. That's no big deal. I think it's because I'm so punctual when it comes to responding to things. Like, if I get a text I typically respond to it within a couple of hours, and that's why I never really have a backlog. Same thing with my email. At most, lately, I've only had, like, between 4 to 5 emails at a time. 4 of those 5 will be, like, spam stuff, and then it'll be, like, 1 email from a friend, and I'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm a fast typer, so this should be no problem trying to, respond to that." So, generally speaking, texting people back doesn't really bother me, especially if I use a keyboard, then it really doesn't bother me. 'Cause I'm the type of person that I like to personalize my responses. Like, when people wish me happy birthday on Facebook, I like to make my responses to those birthday wishes something that feels like it's addressing the person rather than addressing the wish. So, like, I know some people make, like, a generic post, and they'll tag everyone in it and say, like, "Thank you for all the birthday wishes." Yeah, no, I hate copy and pasting. That's I think AI is responsible for that. "Hello, Kevin, glad you could make it. Thank you for all the exclamation marks." Let me see if I can count all those. I think that's 5 or 6 if I'm not mistaken. My mom has, dyslexia, so I might be getting a few of them mixed up, but how have I been? I have been amazing. Um, I suggest you, rewatch the beginning of this later because I told the story of how I got a chance to venerate a relic of Saint Veronica's veil. And if you haven't heard the story, Saint Veronica was the woman who wiped off Jesus's face um, with his. No, you didn't mock it. And I don't technically have dyslexia. My mom does, but I like sometimes pick up on some of her traits. So I always joke around that I have partial dyslexia because like sometimes I'll get my words mixed up or I'll like say sayings wrong. Like one time I said different stokes for different folks instead of saying different strokes for different folks. But I think mine's funnier, honestly, because it rhymes. But yeah, I got to venerate a piece of that. And oh boy, did I feel a bunch of sensations. And then the very next day, which was yesterday, I got a chance to go to Eucharistic adoration, and then I got prayed over, and then I did a life confession, and I just felt like all of my regrets were completely gone, and I stopped living in the past, and I stopped beating myself up for stuff that happened like over a decade ago. Did I ever say bittering instead of bickering? Nope. Can't say I did that one. I'm sure I've made other mistakes that are even funnier though. Because I tend to be pretty out of touch with, like, sayings and oh, yeah, yeah, let's pretend that that meme didn't happen. Um, but I will say, with regards to reviews that I'm gonna do, um, I do plan on reviewing yeah, we pretend that that video didn't happen. Oh, no worries. Um, I just casually redirect people nowadays. I've stopped getting, like, super annoyed, and now I'm only just like, "Okay, moving on." But, yeah, no, I plan on reviewing Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. I think my island is at level 59, and I looked up how to get the credits, that's the only thing I looked up, and it said you have to get all the tours, and I think I'm about 8 away, so we'll see. What is Tomodachi? Um, it's a video game, and hmm, I know you don't play video games, so this is gonna be hard to describe. So, like, you create your own characters, and then you set parameters for how those characters behave. So you could say, like, this character is going to be reserved, this character is going to be talkative. And you can also give them little quirks, like this person is gonna put their hands on their hips, this person is gonna skip when they walk. And you can teach them, like, catchphrases, like, you can make them say, "I really like Harry Potter trivia," or they can say, "Your eyes look like the Catholic gaming nerds." Yes, my channel name is a catchphrase. And then you can make them, like, talk to each other, and then their personalities will, like, make the conversations personalized, and they recognize that you're a separate entity from them, and so they'll say, like, "Oh, Paul, I want you to feed me," and then, like, they'll have, like, different likes and preferences for their food, so then it's Like, you have to figure out, like, "Oh, okay, if this person really likes this food, then I give it to them to fill up their happy points." And then the more happy points you get, the more stuff you can, like, put on the island for the Miis to play with. So, like, if you make them happy enough, you might be able to give them a seesaw. And it's just a lot of fun to watch all these characters that you created all interacting with each other and walking around. And I'm not normally a big fan of these kinds of games. Like, I'm normally more of a story heavy kind of guy where I like a big narrative. I like something to work towards. But there's something so cool about the personalization aspect of it where I can say I made up the names of some of these characters, and I made up the name of my island. And so I I hope that my review will help people to start a discussion about like, "Oh, hey, Paul, I've never heard of someone named Heshaya before. What's the history behind that?" I certainly hope people get the impression that I did make up 3 different names. My island is called Denport. I know that sounds ordinary, but I did make up that name. It was, the town in one of my unpublished novels. I actually had a pattern when I did my novel names, is that I would make up the names of all the places in the book. I even made a world map, which, if you watch my video called The Secrets of the Dawn trilogy, you'll see, like, a whole bunch of things that, like, people helped me to draw. So, like, my sister helped me to draw a map of my world, and, like, each name had this pattern where it had either, 2 or 3 syllables. So, like, there was Denport, Brookwood, Gregartia, um, Argathan, like, e I didn't want to just make it take place in things that looked like it was just, like, America or just Japan. I wanted to feel like these are names that only Paul would come up with. You named your island Skull. Very nice. Very, very nice. I haven't seen King Kong, but I heard that Donkey Kong was a reference to King Kong. Although, actually, I've also heard that Donkey Kong was actually inspired by Popeye and Bruto. It's amazing how people draw a drawing of a leaf she drew in 5 minutes. Ugh, if I tried to draw a leaf, it would probably look more like a napkin. So, the only thing I was able to draw in Tomodachi Life was I drew a cherry on top of a cake, and I never tried drawing anything again. If you do end up watching my review, pretty much everything on my island is gonna be just me cobbling things together, and, like, most of the decorations, like the tables and the seesaws are just gonna be where my Miis said, like, "Hey, Paul, I was wondering if I could put a bench here." Like, they did most of the decorating, not me. The new Donkey Kong game is just King Kong, giant ape protecting a woman in a dress. If you mean Donkey Kong Bonanza, I don't know. I mean, Pauline is 13 in that game. She can wear a dress, but her standard getup is ripped jeans and I don't know if you'd call it a tank top, like a sleeveless t-shirt, I guess is more accurate. I don't know the names of all of girls' clothes. I just know that I'm allergic to denim, so I don't wear jeans. And I don't typically wear sleeveless stuff. Um, Mainly just because if I'm gonna go sleeveless, I'm gonna go completely shirtless. Um, but, like, sleeveless stuff for me is just I don't know, it feels odd. Like, that's why I don't really like basketball jerseys. If I watched the 2005 film, no, I can't say I watched that. I saw Nintendo Power review it, back in the day, and they gave it a 9, and they said it was, like, one of those super immersive games, but then again, this was on the GameCube, so they probably thought Twilight Princess was immersive. To be fair, though, um, Twilight Princess still has some immersion, tricks that even Breath of the Wild doesn't have. Hello, Lodo. Glad you could make it. I really appreciate how you basically carried the live stream last time when no one else was here. Like, oh, that means so much to me. How have you been doing lately? How's everyone been doing for that matter? If anyone has any good news, I would love to hear it. I also forgot to mention, I got a chance to go to my PCP, it's primary care physician, and she just did a quick checkup and she said everything looks great. So probably going to be sticking around for quite a bit longer. So for any of you hoping that I'm going to be the world's longest running YouTuber, it's looking likely. It's looking like it's going to happen. Oh, thank you, hey girl. I really appreciate that. Um, there was something else I was going to say about games. I do plan on renting Shoot in Order. I know that came out last year. I just didn't bother getting it when it came out because it was digital only, and it took until now to get a physical version. So the physical version comes out on the 30th, and then I'll give it a try. And what and oh, you gotta watch your cholesterol? That's a shame. I hope you're able to get healed of that. You've also been playing Tomodachi Life. Very nice. 3 hours making Vale. I know who Vale is. She's from Fire Emblem Engage. I really like Vale quite a lot. Very, very fascinating character. Made for some of my favorite moments in the game, honestly. And then the internet tore her apart, and I felt so sad because I was like, I'm not a biggest fan of Engage's story either, but it had its moments. And I think most of the internet, they don't like moments. They like the whole thing to be this grand epic. But I won't say any more because learning why the game is called Fire Emblem is one of the biggest joys of every Fire Emblem game because the emblem is different in every game. Yeah, when I was making my best games of 2023, Fire Emblem Engage made number 9, whereas Three Houses was number 1 in 2019. So I'm definitely not the biggest fan of Engage, but I still enjoyed it for what it was. A lot of X-Men characters. I haven't seen X-Men, but I appreciate the commitment to really showing off your interests. Yeah, by all means, add me to your Tomodachi Life Island. Lodo is either going to or already did do the same thing. And if you want to email me a picture or a video file, like I said, my email's in the About section. Go for it. Yeah, no, I would love it if you made me on the island. I just have a couple of parameters. Make sure that I'm not. Make sure that I am aromantic because I don't like the idea of game romance. Like, I've never been a big fan of shipping. So, like, set my dating preferences to nobody. Um, Make sure I'm clean shaven. And, uh, yeah, I guess that's about it. Ooh, you made me last one. Ooh, Mitsuru and Yukari. I do really like those people. They're very nice. Yeah, no, I really like Yukari because she's like a very straightforward person. She kind of reminds me of me a little bit. Like if I were a girl, like I feel like I'd be kind of like Yukari because the way she makes fun of Junpei is kind of the way that I make fun of some of my friends. Like I have a friend of mine who has a very similar personality to Junpei's, and I can see us having a similar kind of banter where I'm just like, "Oh, great. You just did whatever came to your mind again, huh?" Jean Grey, Cyclops, Wolverine, and Nightcrawler. I don't think I know any of those people, but again, I am always happy to hear people being able to express their love of fandoms. Now, on my island, and again, I'm going to be reviewing it eventually, um, most of the characters on my island are my creations. Some of them I even made up the names, like Astora, Malsifar, and Heshaya are all names that I made up. Like I said, the island name I made up. And Yeah, I wanted people to get an idea of what my novels were like, even if they're never gonna be published. Yeah, well, if any of you guys wanna just info dump a whole bunch of, facts about your fandoms, that'd be great. Nightcrawler's a devout Catholic. Very nice. I am also an outcast. I mean, like, not an outcast in a bad way. I just never feel like I fit in anywhere I go. Like, even when I'm around Catholics, I feel like I'm the odd one out. I was the most popular person in my school, but yet I still felt like I was the odd one out, even when I was there in my family. Um, yeah, no, I've never felt like I fit in, and I've never wanted to. I've always been the type of guy that I like my uniqueness, and I like being able to say that I'm the only me. I've never been the type of person that would call myself a people pleaser. Like, obviously, it's important to be like nice to people and like treating them like you would treat yourself, and all that Jesus talks about with like charity and whatnot. But as far as, like, if everyone else is smoking, I gotta smoke, like, no, no, that's not my kinda thing. You all go ahead and have lung cancer. I'm gonna be able to breathe by the time I die. Thank you very much. If everyone else likes one video game, I'll just say, "I'm just gonna go play another." But I've heard Tomodachi Life is pretty popular. So, I guess maybe sorry to make you sad, hey girl, but hey, I have been praying for you. I have been praying that you'll be able to quit smoking. And not everyone experiences what my grandpa did, but at the same time, you're more likely to get lung cancer from smoking than if you didn't. But then again, I've also heard, yeah, we're a rallying group here. Everyone here is all about supporting, not shaming. So, um, there was one time I was at my former job and my boss was having trouble with quitting smoking. And so I bought her a DSI, which is a video game system, and then I bought her a game for it called the My Quit Smoking Coach. And I think I only paid like $2, or no, actually, I think I paid $1 for it. And I said, "Hey, have your kids teach you how to set this up, and maybe that can be like how you quit smoking." So I think if you can find that game, it's probably dirt cheap. That might be a really good avenue. I know for me, I used to have an addiction to what did I have an addiction to? I used to have an addiction to video games. I think some people might say I still do, but I have learned to take a lot of breaks. And I've also learned that I like having excuses not to play video games. Like, if there's no new games out, sometimes I just won't play a game for like a week if I need to. Bad habits, yeah, no, they are very, very hard to get rid of. I remember I used to have a bad habit, and I think I kind of still do. Um, I used to have a bad habit of always having a hard time taking compliments. So, like, my friends would go on and on about all the great stuff I was doing, and I'd be like, you're only saying that to make me feel better. So, I've since learned that the average person compliments you because they genuinely mean it. And typically, the only people that I'll have trouble accepting compliments from are the people who I don't know very well, I guess. But, like, even then, I've learned a couple of things about, like, body language, about, like, a true compliment versus like just saying something to be polite. Never smoke or drink. Well, drinking, that's a bit of a gray area because like Jesus' first miracle was turning water into wine. So clearly he wouldn't have done that if he didn't want people to drink at all. I think it's just you got to do it in moderation. And I think, don't quote me on this, I think there are certain types of cigars, not cigarettes, cigars that you can smoke that like are healthier. I don't think they're ideal, but it's like a substitute for cigarettes if you're just like you need the dopamine rush, but like that's something to look into. But either way, what's important is that we realize that our bodies are sacred and it's important to treat them like, the Bible says that our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. And when we think of temples, we just think of like, oh, a nice looking building, that's cool. But when the Bible says temple, they refer to the place of worship, like the highest, the building of the highest honor of their society. And in the Old Testament, the temple was where they kept the Ark of the Covenant, which was so holy that people couldn't even touch it. And so when the Bible says you're a temple of the Holy Spirit, he's saying you are this precious guardian where you are so important that if people try to touch you, that's a bad thing, kind of thing. We had a Monsignor live at my building. When he moved out, there were a lot of liquor bottles. Then my Catholic friend said he needed a drink because of all the heavy stuff people would bring to him. Uh, like I said, moderation. Oh, okay, you weren't finished. Bring to him in confessions. He needed to vent his emotions, so he drank. Not sure about that. What are your thoughts? Find other ways to vent. Because even if I wasn't a Catholic, I would look at drinking from the perspective of the logical perspective. So I'd say, okay, what happens after you get drunk? You have a hangover. What also happens after you get drunk? You get addicted. So then you spend all that money on drinks that you could have easily spent on stuff like apple juice, which is much healthier and it doesn't get you drunk. Not only that, but when you're drunk, you tend to like do and say things that you regret. And then if you drink while driving, you're like putting your life in danger and you're putting other people's lives in danger. So it comes across as selfish. Like you're only thinking about yourself. Whereas if you drink something healthier like apple juice, you're like helping other people's lives and you're helping yourself while also giving you a health benefit. Now, the Bible actually does have a couple of verses that actually encourage drinking wine because Jesus drank wine, for example. Again, first miracle was turning water into wine. And there are a couple of Bible verses, I don't know them offhand, but they say like if you have an upset stomach, drink wine. So obviously like in moderation is possible. Um, I just think drinking for the sake of getting drunk has so many bad consequences that I would hope that people would find other ways of coping with their problems. Or, there's other things you can do too. Like you could get a therapist, you could journal, you could go jogging, you could I don't know, cry. Even just crying. By the way, guys, we're going to have a celebration moment right now because we just hit 9 viewers on this live stream. Generally speaking, when I hit 10, I say that that's usually about my limit. But since only about 4 of you are talking right now, currently it's not really getting overwhelming because I'm still seeing all your comments, thankfully. Would you be committing a sin if you don't drink? No, I don't think so. There's nothing in the Bible that says it's mandatory to drink. It's just it's getting drunk that the Bible says, like, do not do that. Quoted some things to your Catholic friend, and he asked me, were you a Protestant because of proof text? That's true. And we always look at everything in context of everything. So we look at, like, when was it written? Who was it written for? What did it mean in its original language? What does it mean in contrast with every other verse in the entire Bible? Protestants typically take one verse and then they'll like view it with a 21st century mind, and then they'll also like look at it by themselves without taking it in conjunction. Yeah, yeah. Catholics tend to they'll use Bible verses when they're talking to Protestants to point out the absurdity of only using Bible verses. Like they'll say, well, where in the Bible does it say to only use the Bible? They might also say, like, well, okay, well, before the New Testament was written, what did all of the what did all the disciples do? They didn't have the gospels to read, so literally everything they taught would have been tradition. At what point did they stop teaching tradition? And that's where you can get the Protestants the next time they try to preach sola scriptura to you. Loda, what did you mean when you said here, here? I'm not sure I know what that means in context. One day I'll get 1,000 views. 1,000 views? That would be cool. 1,000 people consecutively? Ugh, I would dread that. And I must have just jinxed it because now I only have 6 people here. Jesus also founded the Catholic faith, unlike the other denominations where it was founded by regular people. Oh, yeah. Amen to that. Yes, the Bible verses, but again, they weren't originally written in English. So I think too many people treat them as though they were written today. And that's why we have like 1,000 different denominations, is because people don't look at like what was the context when it was written. And if it's in the Old Testament, how has the context changed now that Jesus is around to be the fulfillment of the Old Testament? In fact, the very first book of the New Testament is the Gospel of Matthew. Why is it called the Gospel of Matthew? Because the word gospel means good news. And Jesus was the point when heaven was opened as a result of his death. Loda meant about the people watching live. Okay, I think I know what you mean by that. Um, I think the most people I've ever gotten on these live streams was 10. So we will see. And Martin founded the Protestant because he didn't like the Catholic. Gotta love that logic. I personally disagree with the Catholic Church, so I am going to think that I know better than God. Gotta love that logic. It just, like, I'm the type of person that even when it doesn't come to religion, I always think you should go by measurable truth. So, like, for example, if someone says, prove that gravity is real, instead of trying to figure out why gravity is real, I just present the facts. I just say, okay, jump off of a tree with nothing on except basic clothes. Like you don't have a parachute, you don't have a jetpack, anything like that. You're just wearing a t-shirt and pants and shoes. You're gonna automatically drop to the floor. You're not gonna float up to the sky. So there, gravity exists. And I don't think you need to quote the logical principle behind it to prove it. So in the same way, if I were to go to a trusted friend, and say that friend's Protestant, say that friend is Protestant, and I said, "Oh, hey, it was my birthday and people gave me a lot of gifts and that made me happy." They would believe that. But if I said, "Hey, I went to Eucharistic adoration and I could have sworn I saw the face of Jesus," then they would get skeptical. And then they'd say, "Okay, now we think that you are a fraud." So it's like, well, when it was convenient for you, you're telling me that that's when you decided not to believe me? Same thing. If I say, "Oh, I'm feeling so terrible because I was in depression. I have this terrible stomach ache," they'll believe me then. But then I say, "Oh, I went to Eucharistic adoration and I felt the most wonderful sensation of peace." Then they say, "Oh, you're just imagining it." So it's just too convenient. And again, I've said this in past live streams. There are Bible verses that talk about this kind of mindset where you get one of my favorite verses to quote recently. I don't remember the actual verse numbers, but it was the story of the rich man and Lazarus, and how the rich man was petitioning to Abraham. So, Bible thumping is a sin to me. I would agree, actually. Um, you definitely don't want to just like um, quote a bunch of Bible verses and call it a day. You want to live out your faith. Because Jesus did say, like, not everyone who says Lord is going to enter heaven. And um, he mentioned that at the end of times, the first thing he's going to ask people is, did you serve the people? Did you love them? Did you feed the hungry? Did you clothe the naked? Did you greet people in prison? He's not going to ask about your faith or anything. I mean, he will, but I think it's more important that you are loving, because you can have all the faith in the world. The Pharisees had faith, but they weren't loving. And that's why I think Jesus condemned them so much, is because all they cared about were following the rules and, like you worded it, hey girl, Bible thumping. They said, oh, you need to tithe this much and you need to pray this much. And yet they weren't showing any charity. They were they were just trying to self-glorify themselves. So, well, I forgot what I was saying there. I just think that, does my channel have an Instagram? Yes, but there's nothing on it. The only reason I got an Instagram was because I wanted to be able to keep up with the people that were memeing me and be able to say, stop it, it's annoying. So, don't ever expect me to post anything on there, because I figure I'll either just post it here or post it on my personal Facebook page. Because I've heard that Instagram is kind of useless when you have a laptop, that it's more for people with smartphones. I technically have a smartphone, I just don't like using it except for a camera, video recording, and Nintendo Music. Everything else, I'm just like, yeah, I can just use a flip phone. Like, people might think that I'm just stubborn and stuck in the past, and that's why I still have a flip phone. My reasoning is it's much more energy efficient. Like this thing, I usually only have to charge it like once every 2 weeks. And it also is more durable. Like this thing has fallen out of my pocket so many times and it still works. In fact, I don't even think there are any like broken bits on this thing. Like obviously some of the paint has chipped off, as you can see, but like there's no like no cracks, nothing like that. Just a very smooth thing. And I've had this thing since about, I think, 2020. Flip phones are not even produced that much anymore because of low demand. They're produced more than you would think, because I actually encountered a couple of people at the gym who were much older than me, and they all said, hey, this is what model my flip phone is. And it was newer than mine, because this thing is a 2019 model, which already a lot of people are like, a 2019 model flip phone? But these people apparently have even newer flip phones than I do. So they're getting back in style. I think it's because they realize that old people can't handle all the advanced tech. And when I mean old people, I mean like people in their 80s and 90s. Um, they need something that's going to be simple. And flip phones are about the simplest thing you need. If you want to dial a number on this thing, you just enter it, press the green button, you're good to go. My dad, like whenever my dad doesn't have a cell phone, but whenever he does use a cell phone, he typically prefers to use mine over my mom's, because all he has to do is just press the buttons and then press the green button. Like with my mom's, you have to open up the phone app and then you have to type it in and then you have to press this button. And he's just like, that's too complicated for me. Well, old people is a relative term, because like I remember when I did chaperoning, I would feel like I was an old person there, because like when you've chaperoned as much as I have, you begin to notice that every year you get older, but the teenagers stay the same. So like Now, when I see like 17-year-olds, for example, I think, oh my gosh, they look so young. Whereas, like, when I was 17, I thought they looked ancient. Of course, I age super slowly, so I think some 17-year-olds mistake me for being one of them. You feel old at the age of 25? Well, hey, 25, they say statistically, is the age when most people reach their full emotional maturity. So that could be what you're feeling. When you were 19, you thought 29 was way old. Yeah, yeah. I remember when I was 16, I thought 18 was super old. It's all a matter of perspective. Just, we all have different definitions of things. Um, in God's mind, he's probably laughing at all of us and being like, you think you were old? I've been around since the beginning of time. What was I going to say? I completely forgot my train of thought. Yeah, I lost it. um, I mentioned shooting order. I mentioned Tomodachi life, the veil, Eucharistic adoration. Yeah, I think I lost it, guys. All right, let's see if I can start something new in that case. Hmm. Assuming I can't finish Tomodachi life in time for my trying to upload a video at least once a week, what kind of video would you like to see? Would you like to see a Myers-Briggs video? Would you like to see a retrospective of last month being when I hit 10 years of video game reviews as well as 10 years of rebooting the channel? Would you like to see stories? Because I'm working on a 10-year retrospective, but at the same time, I wasn't expecting to live stream this soon. So if there's something else you guys want to see, maybe I can switch gears or whatever you call it and make something else. Yes, I do know your answer, hey girl. If I were to make a video like your answer, I would probably do ISTJs and INFJs hanging out. Because I don't think most people expect us to like enjoy casual conversations because we are so very different. And I think it would be interesting for people to just learn like, okay, there's so many resources out there that talk about ISTJs and INFJs in relationships, but as friends, as just casually hanging out platonically, I don't. If there is a source out there that talks about that, I'm genuinely curious if that exists. But yeah, I'm thinking like if I make Myers-Briggs videos going forward, they're definitely going to be like INFJ focused because by far my biggest audience for the Myers-Briggs videos are INFJs. I think ISTPs are a close second because my video all about ISTPs did really well, and technically they have the same function stack. Um, so I figure if they're the ones that are giving the most support and like making these long drawn out responses, which shows that they actually care and are not doing something AI generated, it's like, okay, you appeal to the masses when it comes to YouTube. You look at like what are the people that put the most effort into making a thoughtful comment, and then like those are the people you want to appeal to. So I actually cropped out a thumbnail where it just says ISTJ and INFJ. And so I'm definitely going to like want more people to be aware of that dynamic. Yeah, no, I usually like ISTPs. Um they're quite different from me, but like a baby. What are we talking about, Kevin? I think I missed the context. Hey Girl likes to talk about psychology, and so I guess like when we talk about the letters too quickly. Oh, it was just a delayed reaction. I see. Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, there's this running joke about me that when I'm in someone's chat, like I type these like full paragraphs of what I have to say, and then I'll have another full paragraph a couple of seconds later. And people will say, "How is it that you have perfect grammar and you're typing so fast?" And I just say, "Well, because when I was in school, we actually learned how to type, and um, we learned that proper punctuation is key." And to be fair, I actually never learned how to type properly. Like, you know, grammar was my best subject. Ooh, turn 26 next month. Very nice, Kevin. I hope that turns out well for you. If I can, maybe I'll even do a live stream and call it Kevin's birthday stream or something like that. Honestly, that sounds kind of cool now that I think about that. But yeah, no, English and grammar were my best subjects in school. And so I would always be that guy that would always just be like, okay, okay, let me just critique all the ways in which that sentence was completely wrong. And I don't pretend to be perfect at grammar myself, but I'm definitely better at that than any other subject in school. Like math was by far the worst, and yet I like Fire Emblem. You learned typing in high school, and that was the best thing you learned there. Yeah, I technically learned how to type. I just didn't like it. So when I type, I just do it in what's called poking. And yet, I know a guy who does type properly. And yet, I type way faster than he does. So I guess it goes to show you that I just have more awareness of my surroundings than he does. Well, I know I have more awareness of my surroundings than he does. It's pretty rare for him to spot something that I don't. And usually when he does, he like has to point it out, which I've noticed with people with extroverted sensing is like they have to announce to the world whatever they observe. Whereas for me, I tend to not do that as much. I tend to just reminisce a lot. So if something comes up in the moment, like a sunset or a beautiful tree, I won't say, "Oh, that tree is beautiful." I might say something like, "Oh, that tree reminds me of Deathly Hallows." Whereas extroverted sensors will typically say stuff like, "Oh, that tree is gorgeous. Can we sit here and just bask in the glory of the tree?" And I'll be like, all right, but I finished basking in it 2 seconds ago. So they're definitely way more in the moment. That is, you hardly ever reminisce. How do I do it? You start talking about the past. Is that what you meant? Like, I guess I just my brain is like a journal. I suppose that's the best way of describing it. I just I pick up on details so easily. And especially if those details are like they have some kind of I don't want to say meaning because like I remember some details that have no deeper meaning. Like I remember that the floor was gray on my first mission trip. That doesn't really have any relevance. And I remember that the leaves outside the tree were green. But I have thought about being a detective. I wouldn't want to do it as a job, but I do like a lot of detective games. Like, pretty sure I reviewed 2 detective games, one right after another. No, if I get a job, it's going to be as a janitor. Detective Paul. I did review both Detective Pikachu games. Don't watch my first one. Watch Detective Pikachu Returns. Um, I reviewed Master Detective Archives, Ghost Trick Phantom Detective. I could be like Shuichi, yes. Yes. I do like Shuichi quite a lot. He's kind of like how do I describe him? He kind of reminds me of, like, I can kind of relate to him a little bit, but at the same time, like, the way he expresses his emotions are a bit more, I guess, extreme. Like, my self doubt tends to be very soft spoken, whereas, like, when he gets emotional, like, everyone knows it. Mild mannered enough to get the truth out of suspects. Unfortunately, my mild manneredness isn't always very effective because I tend to annoy people that are um I tend to annoy people that are more in tune with their emotions because they will just want to vent and I will like just say like you don't need to vent. I can hear you perfectly fine from over here and they'll be like, "Well, people's voices naturally get louder when you're venting. Why are you telling us off?" And I'll be like, "Hey, you do that, you're wasting adrenaline. Save it for when you need it." And again, they don't get how I can be so calm when everyone else is like panicking. But then when I panic, it tends to be mostly on the inside. And then, like, I usually get quiet when I'm emotional. And that's how people know, like, oh, something is really bothering Paul. Is like, I'm normally a quiet talker. But when I'm like really quiet, like this quiet, then you know, like, oh boy, is he feeling something. Because again, I've researched the benefits of not like shouting when you're angry. And I guess, and I just don't think literally everyone has this ability. I guess I just have the innate ability on the spot when I'm being emotional to remember these tips about anger management. And as a result, literally I'll say, "Oh, no, this book said not to show your anger in like an aggressive way to save energy." And I'll be like, "Okay, fine." So then when I do get angry, you typically don't see a whole lot of it reflected in my body language. Like I haven't actually hollered at someone since 2017, if you can believe it. The most I've done is I'll say like, um, what was the most I did? I think the most I did was I just said, "Why are you so oblivious? Like, can't you learn to just like actually pay attention to things for once?" Like that's probably the most I've ever gotten. Maybe I should be an interrogate? Yeah, I don't know. I don't like being a cop. I think it's just um too much reacting on the spot. I'm definitely more of a read a list of instructions and follow them kind of guy. I'm not very adaptable. So if I'm in any kind of job that requires me to think on the spot, I am not going to be good at it. A mundane, detailed work. Yeah, that's being a janitor for you. Oh, good. I'm glad you had that opportunity, Lodo, except that I'm the exact opposite. When I was a janitor, I liked it to be perfectly silent. I did not like, well, I was a janitor at a gym, so I didn't like the sound of the machines. I didn't like it when the TV was on. I just wanted it to be dead silent. Like, I would be okay if I talked to like one or two people, but I definitely did not want some kind of auditory distraction. In fact, I'm the type of guy that I typically don't just listen to music a whole lot during the day. And if I do, it's because I'm either feeling nostalgic or I'm anticipating how people react when I put that music in my end of year project. So, like, right now, typically the only music I'll listen to in my spare time is stuff that I'm planning for my like best memories and best games videos. And I'll listen to it like trying to get into the mindset of like the people watching it. You wanted to be a cop back then, but couldn't due to psychosis and stress. Yeah, that'll do it. You gotta be pretty thick-skinned to be a cop. You need everything quiet. Yep. Um, I can talk to people when I'm cleaning, but I can only handle so much before I'm just like, "Okay, um, I do like to be mostly quiet when I'm on the job." Oh, yeah, definitely don't wanna drive and let me distract you. You have a great rest of your day, Kevin. Thank you so much for showing up. What was I gonna say? But yeah, that goes for just about everything. Like when I go to the gym, I don't like listening to music. I don't like watching TV. I like talking to people when I'm working out, but um I don't like anything else. I hate it when people bring in their earbuds when they go into the gym because I generally don't like this idea that people find other people to be beneath them just simply by existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, maybe this is just a me thing, but I would like to think that even when I need my alone time, if people really, really need me, I want to be there for them. And I would like to think that no matter who I come across, I always want to treat that person as though they're just a very special person. That's why I try to say hi to everyone I pass, or at the very least, smile. And so when I go to the gym and people just like will purposely avoid eye contact with me because they're like, I just want to get my workout done. Leave me alone. I get annoyed by that because I'm just like, you really just don't see the value in human beings. That just makes me sad. You have to go too, hey girl? Well, hey, you know what? Thanks for dropping by as long as you did. I have listened to the Persona 3 soundtrack, and I do know what you're talking about. But that particular song, that's called Mass Destruction, isn't it? Not a big fan of that game or that song. Generally speaking, Persona 5 has my favorite songs in the Persona series. Technically, Persona 5 Royal, if you count that Takeover is in Royal, because Takeover is my favorite song in the Persona series. Um, I don't know how to explain why I like it. I don't know. It's just a cool battle theme. But I also really like Reach Out to the Truth from Persona 4, or whatever the battle theme is in that game. Well, I played Persona 5 Royal before I played Persona 5, and I remember looking up what some of the changes were, and I was kind of amazed because I was like, dang, Persona 5 feels like a rushed game in comparison. Like, why didn't they just make Persona 5 Royal first? Because they only came out, I think, like 4 years apart. Um, I can't even think of what Persona 5 itself did better than Royal besides, like, it was the originator. Like, every single change I saw looked like something that was, like, greatly beneficial to the gameplay. I just realized I completely forgot to bring water. Oh my gosh, I must be getting so used to this. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm gonna go get some water, and then I will be right back. But before I do, I'll answer your question, Matthew. Do I speak any other languages besides English? Yes. Pig Latin and Ubby Dubby. But let me get some water first, and then I will get more into that. Alrighty. What did I miss here? You got it, Lodo. My favorite word in Ubby Dubby is the word for cereal, which is sabarabiabo. And then Pig Latin, I'm very fluent in that. I know a couple of words in Latin. Like, I can sing the whole Lamb of God in Latin. I won't, because I'm not good at singing anymore, but I used to be. I used to be in a choir. I was even in an adult choir that sang Mozart's Requiem. And uh, it is painful to listen back on it. Not because I think I did badly. I mean, you can barely even hear me in the video because the tenor section was very overshadowed by the sopranos and altos. Like, I think we only got one solo piece in the whole song, and it was like 5 seconds long. Modern Standard Arabic. Very nice, Matthew. Very nice. But welcome in. What's been up with you lately? But yeah, no, I used to really love Zoom, and I like I said, I got so into it that I became fluent in Ubby Dubby. Hmm. Nothing much. So I'm guessing you probably haven't been playing too much Tomodachi Life. I am at the point in Tomodachi Life where my island is about to hit level 60 at the Wishing Fountain. And in order to reach the credits, I have a bit more to go, but I feel like it's within reach now, which I'm very happy about. Did I watch the 9/11 episode? I don't remember. Um Unfortunately, my memory of Zoom is more so like what I learned from it as opposed to the individual episodes. So like I remember Ubby Dubby, and I remember there was this one girl that like knew how to raise one eyebrow and not the other. And then I remember the episode where they were like jumping off the boat into the lake. And I remember there was a girl named Emily who was like standing on the diving board and too scared to like jump over. And that was back when I was sexist. So I was just like, oh my gosh, why is she wearing that skimpy thing? Even though nowadays I would say that that was a very modest swimsuit. They did a good job capturing what it was like as a kid to deal with that event. Yeah, I think it's good that kids shows around that time. Well, I didn't watch too many TV shows honestly, but um I do know that there was an episode of Arthur where there was, I think, a school fire, and Arthur was dealing with the idea that his dad almost died and like fearing that he would die again. And so like dealing with that topic I think was handled really nicely. I feel like in retrospect that's the episode of Arthur I want to rewatch the most because I have a really bad well, maybe not since I did my life confession, but I used to have a very, very, very hard time with saying goodbye. And I'm the type of person that I always think of worst scenario. Like, if a person doesn't text me for too long, I usually assume that they're dead. So I could definitely relate to Arthur's pain to a degree. March 3rd, there was also an episode called April 9th, and I never understood the significance of that. You can read Arabic and you know some words. Very nice, Matthew. The Blizzard Arthur episode. Um, I'll have to see if I even can watch Arthur. Cause usually it's my sister that handles like, watching TV. I almost never watch TV by myself. In fact, I don't even remember the last time I did. I've barely even watched movies by myself. Probably the only one in recent memory that I watched alone was the Super Mario Brothers movie. Once the Super Mario Galaxy movie comes to DVD, I'll probably buy that. because I genuinely loved that movie. I can see where the critics are coming from, but at the same time, I don't care. I can't I can't stop my emotions, and my emotions were positive the whole time. Even when they had a valid criticism, I was like, it's still not stopping me from enjoying myself every second of it. Maybe I'm silly for that. But maybe that's how people feel about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I might say the game is unoptimized and buggy, but if people are having fun, then I guess they're having fun. I would say in general, I'm a Mario fan, but I have some pretty unpopular opinions. I would say there are more Mario games that I don't like than I do like. As far as Mario games that I do like, the first two Paper Marios were phenomenal. Mario RPG was alright. It definitely had its Super Nintendo E moments that made the remake feel a bit dated. Mario 64 is pretty fun. I love the Galaxy games. Those are great. Mario Odyssey is phenomenal. Bowser's Fury is pretty great. 3D Land, eh. Pretty standard by Mario standards, but it did good 3D. Mario Strikers was alright. Mario Tennis Aces was pretty good. Hmm. That's about it. Yeah. I don't really like too many other Mario games besides that. I guess Super Mario World is fun to an extent, but I'm just so bad at it that I have to spam the rewind. So I could never play it on the original Super Nintendo. You only dislike Sunshine? That is crazy. Um, because I remember, not you. I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm saying when I played Super Mario 3D All Stars, I remember being flabbergasted by how much I did not like Sunshine on that collection. And I blamed it on bad emulation, or like, oh, I'm playing it with the Joy-Cons instead of a GameCube controller, so they must have just done a terrible job. Um, so it pained me quite a lot to have to be that harsh on it in my review, because I remember I used to love Super Mario Sunshine when I played it on the GameCube. It'll be very interesting going back to it whenever it eventually comes on Switch Online and being able to say, was it actually that bad, or was it just 3D All Stars that ruined it? Acts 2:11. We hear them declaring the wonders of God in our own tongues. Oh, you know how to say that in um different languages? That's cool. Yeah. See, the thing about Super Mario Sunshine is that I feel like Mario's moveset was more convenient, whereas Mario 64 had more options. So, like, for example, wall jumping, you had to be like super precise in Mario 64. Whereas in Mario Sunshine, Mario would stick to the wall, and that would like give you more of a grace period. Was it unrealistic? Heck yeah. But was it convenient? Very much so. And for a game that was so buggy, you really needed those tiny little things to add up. Like when Mario goes behind a building, the camera will like show his shadow so you can still see where he is in 3D space. And I think the only reason flood was added was for people that still struggled with depth perception. Because Super Mario Sunshine could have some challenges where depth was definitely an issue. I remember my least favorite part of Sunshine was always the Pianta Chuckster mission, where you had to like get them to throw you across the level. I hated that so much. It was a real pain in the neck in 3D All Stars because that has like no save functionality mid level. So whenever it comes to Switch Online, you can bet I'll be spamming that save feature to never have to go through all those Chuckster levels again. But somehow, I don't know how I did it. Somehow I beat Super Mario Sunshine on the regular GameCube. I have no idea how I did that. I mean, to be fair, I did have a strategy guide back then, so maybe that's how. But when I went to play it again in 3D All Stars, yeah, I just was like, wow, this is way worse than I remember it. And that's just a real shame. But Galaxy, thankfully, Galaxy held up really well in 3D All Stars, except for the pointer controls. They kept going out of sync because they didn't have a sensor bar. And then they ported it to the Switch, and they didn't improve it one bit. And I used a gag from Ty the One Up Guys channel just to emphasize it. You got all the shines? Oh, that sounds like torture. I can't say that's ever happened to me. I'm generally not the kind of guy that likes 100% in games all that much, but when I do, I like really commit to it. Like with Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore, um, not only did I get all the collectibles, but I beat one-shot mode, which is easier than it sounds, but at the same time, you still have to have a certain level of skill to be able to not get a single game over through your whole run. And I've lost some of that skill because I believe because I tried like recompleting Arzette, and I think I got stuck on the second hardest difficulty. Maybe it's just because I was more in the zone back then. I almost didn't review Arzette the Jewel of Faramore. I was so close to giving up. But then I watched a streamer that got past an area that I was struggling with. And so I said, oh, well, let me try the trick that he just taught me. And it worked. And so then I decided to beat the game. And then I decided to 100% it. And then I said, I love this game so much, I'm making it number 2. I did not play the CDI Zelda games. But I did watch all of the cutscenes beforehand. So, like, I knew about all the YouTube poops. Didn't watch most of them because YouTube poops really aren't my thing. But like I got the reason why it was so infamous. So like I caught most of the references. And I loved the fact that Bonnie Jean Wilbur and Jeffrey Rath came back. So it just felt like it was too good to be true that that kind of a project would be allowed on a Nintendo system. So I ended up buying it. I don't think there's actually a rentable physical. If you do want a physical copy, you have to get it through limited run, which I've heard they're not great, especially not with their physical distribution. So I just bought it off of the eShop, and in my opinion, it was one of the best purchases I ever made off of the eShop because it's kind of it creates a bit of revisionist history because it's so good that it makes you wonder, were the CDI Zelda games actually good the whole time? They just were maybe a bit too rushed and maybe released at the wrong time on the wrong system. But like, because the guy who made Arzette, Seth Fulkerson, before he made Arzette, he actually made remasters of the CDI Zelda games on Steam. Then he delisted them because he thought he would get in trouble with copyright. But then he took what he learned from making those remasters and decided to make an all new game out of it, and that's how he got Arzette. And I think he did a spectacular job. And he actually did make me think that, like, what if the CDI Zelda games were actually good? Like, maybe if they used more polish, then I could see people actually enjoying them. So if the CDI game, I highly doubt it, highly, highly doubt it. But if they ever get ported to a Nintendo system, wait, I just remembered something. Nintendo re-released the Virtual Boy. If they can do that, what's to say that they won't ever port over the CDI Zelda games? Because I would argue that the Virtual Boy was arguably worse than the CDI Zelda games because the Virtual Boy actually made people sick, it made them get migraines, and it made them want to vomit. As bad as the CDI games were, I think the most people felt was frustration, but they didn't get physically sick from playing it. So if Nintendo can re-release the Virtual Boy, I think they can re-release the CDI games. For a historical standpoint, that's hilarious. Yeah, I'm not a masochist when it comes to video games. I generally will stay away from games that are bad or have like a bad reputation. I used to try doing that where like with Amiibo Festival, I tried to see if it was as bad as everyone said, and boy do I regret it. Um so I've learned ever since I reviewed Lost Lands Dark Overlord that I just said, yeah, I'm never gonna buy a game just for the sake of buying a game and proving everyone wrong again. I'm just gonna like try to only stick to games that I think will be good. Those whole games are the reason PlayStation got made. I did hear something about that. That like Nintendo was gonna make a system called the Nintendo PlayStation, and then they backed out of the deal because Sony wanted to use discs and Nintendo was stubborn and wanted to use cartridges. And then they created their own competition. Yeah, Nintendo can be boneheads at times, but it seems like things are changing just a tiny little bit within Nintendo. We're getting these glimpses of them listening to the fans just a little bit more. Again, they've listened to the fans in the past. I can give you several examples. But to name a few within the past year, Super Mario Galaxy 2 on the Switch has storybook content in it. And a lot of that storybook content influenced the Mario Galaxy movie, which itself um, did a lot of things that old Nintendo would never have done. Plus, we're getting a Zelda movie. Plus, in Metroid Dread was, or no, I said within the past year. Um, Donkey Kong Bonanza felt like they were really listening to the fans. Because, like, I'm not the biggest Donkey Kong guy, but even I could tell, like, ooh, those are some deep cuts there. They even reference a canceled Donkey Kong game at one point. You probably know what I'm talking about, but I won't say it just in case you don't. Probably gonna get a Star Fox movie? I would imagine so. But welcome in, Jevil. I'm probably gonna call it pretty soon, just because one, I'm tired, and um, two, I think, well, I won't say the other reason, but yeah, I think I'm winding down a bit. That Donkey Kong game will be your first. Very, very nice. Personally, my favorite Switch 2 game at present is Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 Edition, but I can understand how that would be more of DLC and not a full game. But my favorite standalone game on the Switch 2 at present would probably be. My favorite one to play with friends is Mario Kart World, but my favorite game overall is Kirby Air Riders. Yeah, if you have a Switch expansion pack, you can get the Tears of the Kingdom DLC for free. So definitely take advantage of that if you can. Just don't try to do Zelda notes with it. That's a huge waste of time. You can easily just like listen to all of the memories on YouTube. But anyway, guys, I think I'm going to call it here. My energy is rapidly declining. But I really appreciate everything you guys have said today. Sorry I had to run, Jevil. It was just bad timing, I swear. It wasn't because of you. It wasn't because I was mad at you or anything like that. It's just I was already on the verge of wanting to quit. And right when you came in was like when I wanted to make the announcement. But I'll try my best to stream as often as possible. But first, let me thank everyone for coming in. Thank you, Jevil. Thank you, Lodo. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Hey Girl. Thank you, Kevin. And I think that's it. Yeah, I had a bit of a smaller crowd today, unless if people were just being silent observers. Am I terminally ill? Uh, not terminally ill, just feeling a bit odd. I don't think I'm coming down with something. I think it's just yeah, we'll just leave it at that for now. But you guys all have a wonderful day. Um, Hope you enjoy Tomodachi Life. Stay tuned for my review. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye.